All right. Good morning, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and get started on this 28th day of June. Beautiful morning out there. Finally dried out and cooled off a little bit. For today, back to Python. Though I'm going to give you back a good bit of time. Some of you are all caught up, but there's folks that need some time to get caught up with SQL, get that all knocked out. So I'll going to cover a couple of notebooks today. I think I'll just get through two, and then we'll adjourn for the day so folks can get caught up. If you are caught up and you'd like SQL, I'm hope you're in. Did anybody get to any of the Sequila stuff that we talked about on Thursday? Seth, you were all caught up. Did you check any of that out or play around with that database at all?
I know. Sorry, I didn't. Like, they finally got where I can access the stuff, but it took some time to get to that.
Yeah,
So,
we'll come back to it. I'll try and use that Sequila database and that connection in Python when we connect to a MariaDB and write a query or two to transform relational data into a data frame. Were you able? You tested the Python connection? It worked with our usual server or with that guest account?
I think it worked with the usual server. I think I had to put in my username and password to get access to it, but I did it in one of the Jupyter notebooks, right? And was able to query that database from that notebook. So,
okay, yeah, cool. Seth and I were troubleshooting his connectivity issues. You run into it pretty much every class. Some firewall port, you got to have port 3306 open inbound and outbound. They usually like to tie it down to a certain the IP address of the server, and normally the workstation inside the firewall that's doing that traffic. But anyway, got it hooked up. That's good. So today, let me show you what I want to go over. It's going to require you. I am screen sharing. Okay, cool. Go to the classroom and look at all those recordings we've already. Man, we're halfway through, guys. Just about. Go down to Python. And if you already downloaded, I got that in the wrong place. If you already downloaded Notebook 6 is where we're at. If you've already downloaded Notebook 6 strings, if you would download it again, because I modified just a couple of things, and put that in your notebooks directory. And then I added this file, gettysburg.txt is just a text file with the text of the Gettysburg Address. Put that in your data directory, like I've always been talking about, having a data directory at the same level as your notebooks directory. If you download those two, and then I thought, yeah, here, I got to put it in the right place. And then download when you get a chance. This will be the next one we go over today. Notebook 7. Got another data structure dictionaries I've mentioned a couple of times that I want to go over those two notebooks today, and then we'll adjourn and let folks get all caught up. If you're caught up, You can work with that Sequila data that we talked about last time, or anything you'd like, actually. I did want to see, hang on just a second. Jeanette and Alyssa. There is one more assignment earlier in the class you probably saw, and it was about business questions. I was hoping to get those from you guys so that I know what kind of analysis projects you might be working on. It or shoot me an email and just let me know what's going on as far as you're not assigned to a particular client area or whatever. So I know kind of what's going on. I covered that in probably the first day's lecture. What sort of things are you looking at? What sort of business problems are you analyzing, and what's the data landscape behind that? How do you access the data? Those sort of basic fundamentals. If I could get that from you two guys when you get a chance, no panic. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. We'll work on that.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get started talking about strings. Does anybody want me to hold off for 30 seconds while you download? Or we okay to go? Okay to go, I guess. All right. So here we are in my Anaconda Navigator and pulling up strings. And yeah, I worked on a couple of things here. So strings, I just wanted to get caught up on how strings are handled because they're so fundamental to the language here. So we're just going to go through some ways of manipulating strings and searching through them, and methods of that class of objects. Okay, so strings are a sequence, like a list of characters that get treated differently and thrown together. But that's really basically what they are. So there's a lot of similarities. If you think of a string data type in Python kind of as an array, to use the generic computer science language, an array of characters, then these functions and the way it operates kind of make a little bit more sense. So, all right. As you know, we can use single or double quotes to assign any legal alphanumeric character to a variable. Name equals Eric Idle. And then it's been a little while. SQL does the loop for you, but going back to our earlier days of Python, you can for loop with your looping variable. Whoop. In the string, and it will your looping variable will be each character in the string, and that can come in handy. Just gives you an idea. And when we print, we get a new line character at the end, so each member of the string is on its own line here. Okay. And there is the len function that gives you the number of characters in that string, including spaces and everything. And we can index. You can get to each individual character in the string using an index, just like we did with a list. You just have to remember that, like everything else in Python, it's 0 based. So name square bracket 6 is actually the 7th character, because the first character is actually the 0th character, just like we've dealt with before. So here's some examples of how that looks. We're printing the length of name, which is 9. Eric Idle's 9 characters. The 6th letter, which is actually the 7th letter, is the D in Idle. And then, yeah, so we assign it to CH character, and then print it out. And it's still CH, even though it's 1 character, it is still a string data type. Some languages have a char care data type, but Python just uses string, and just happens to be a string of 1. Okay. And we've done this before. You concatenate strings with the plus sign. Make sure I'm just reading my own comments here. Make sure I'm not it's not addition. And we will talk about the plus equals and immutable. Yeah, in here just a sec. There we are. Okay, so if you set a variable equal to Michael and a variable equal to Baldwin, you can concatenate them with the plus sign. Remember, in SQL we needed a concat function, but in Python, like Excel uses the ampersand, Python uses the plus, so we can concatenate them into full name. Now, why am I doing that? Why am I not printing full name? Because it's the same. Like I said, I don't always put these back the way I found them when I go off on a tangent, so I do apologize. And if I type in full and hit tab, remember it auto completes for you whenever you hit tab. It auto completes variables, auto completes methods for a data type, which is handy. So if I run this cell again, we get Michael Baldwin. Because remember, print inserts a space between. It assumes you need a space after the first parameter, after each parameter, which sometimes you don't. You just got to be aware of that. Okay. Plus equals makes it look like you are changing the string, but you're not. I got an example down here in just a sec. Strings are immutable, like a tuple. Remember, we worked with a list, and you could change the value at an index location in a list, but you could not in a tuple because they are immutable, unchangeable, whatever. So strings are like that. You can't assign a new character at an index location in a string. It'll get an error, which we see in this next code cell. But what you can do is set the value equal the same variable. String equals string 2 plus this or that. I mean, if you're doing it in an assignment statement, it's okay. You just can't change, like in this last line of code, you couldn't change the 3rd character in the string to a Z without getting an error. So what I'm doing here is I set string text equal to this, and then I plus equaled is. And what that means is I'm concatenating and then assigning it back to the string text variable. So this plus equals is really just a shortcut for concatenating and reassigning that value to string text, so it doesn't break that immutability or immutable nature of the string. All right. So what you're seeing is I build up, this is awesome, and then I print that out. But then when I just try to change one of the cells, one of the members of that string, I get a type error. Object does not support item assignment. You can't. A string object doesn't allow you to do that. It would be just like trying to change a member of a tuple. All righty. So string slicing, I think we were introduced to this, if I remember correctly, just like lists, where you can pull from here to there, and then by a number of characters. You can, every first, it defaults to every character from start to end. I'm looking at this format here, syntax. So string would be your variable, and then start is the first character you want to pull out, end is the last character you want to pull out, and then step is optional. Well, they're all kind of optional, but step is, if you wanted to pull every other character, you'd put a 2 in step. So yeah, string slicing. We've got several examples down here. It defaults to 0 for the beginning. Remember, it's 0 based. So the first character in a string is at index 0. If you leave out the end, and we've got an example down here with this 8 colon nothing. It goes to the end of the string. And if you start negative, it goes before the beginning of the string. I don't know when you would ever do that, but if you leave everything out, the string is copied verbatim. And yeah, the step value allows you to pull out non-consecutive characters. And there's examples of all this right here. So print full name, which was what, Eric Idle, right? Or Michael Baldwin. Michael Baldwin. Michael Baldwin. And then 8 to 12 would be like the 9th character, up to but not including the 12th character, which I want to say would be the end. So we're printing full name. Oh yeah, it was Eric Idle that was 9. So yeah, 8 to 12 gives you these 4 characters, Bald and Baldwin. From the beginning up to, but not including the 6th, this 3rd line of code here, up to, but not including the 6th, which is actually the 7th. So from 0 up to, but not including 6. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which gives us, yes, these 6 characters, MICHAE. So, yeah, up to, but not including that. Both of those, the 0-based thing, and then the end parameter for any of these things is up to, but not including. Those are just, you just got to keep those locked in your head. And when things are off by a character, it jumps out at you as to what you did. So print full name, we start at character 8, which is actually the 9th one, and going, since we left off the end, it goes to the end, which gives us Baldwin. Yeah. -7 goes to the end and goes back. -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sure enough. There you go. I don't know when you would do that, but um, but it does. And then this last step, this last one shows you what happens when you start with 0, start at the beginning, you leave out the middle parameter, which means the end. So actually that 0 is redundant too. You could just say : 3. And you get every third character starting with the first. And those kind of things can be handy for this. And then, depending on what your programming challenge is. I want to make sure that I'm not lying. Yeah, you don't need that beginning 0. It defaults to 0. Okay, so that's how you assign a string, build up a string, concatenate a string, grab characters out of the middle of a string, and then you can test for the existence of a substring within a larger string, just like you can checking for the member of a list. If something is in a list, you use the in operator. So of course, it wouldn't be Python without some Monty Python references here. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. Okay, so real quick tangent here. Have any of you never seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail? Who has not seen it?
I've never finished it, but I've seen about 30 minutes of it.
That's all you can stand, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I've seen like the first 20 minutes.
Well, it's just more of the same nonsense. So you're not really missing anything. But I don't know. I think it's hilarious, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. But yeah, there Arthur's out there on his quest or whatever with the squire and the coconuts, the making the sound, the sound of clippity clopping horse, and he comes upon a French castle. Of course, they're all the Monty Python characters, but yeah, the French soldiers are yelling down from the walls of the castle at Arthur. One of the insults they hurl was, "Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries," which yeah, silly, goofy. Anyway, that's where that came from. So back to our Python syntax. If cheese is in text, which is our string here, text is our nice long string. Print yes, so it returns the in operator returns a Boolean result of either true or false. So when we run this, of course, we get no's because there's no cheese. So, but you may want to check when you're data wrangling if a substring is in there, and if you say your hamster, is hamster in that string? Yes. So that can be really handy when you're, coursing through a column of data and moving things around. Okay, so that is the in operator, but there are, as you know, string methods. I think you guys use these already in error checking to make sure that somebody was entering a number or a character. So is digit, yeah, it checks to see if it's numeric characters, and these return these are Boolean objects. They will return a true or a false. It doesn't modify the string object. It just returns that value based on that. So here's one saying, we're setting a variable called sale amount to, we're not setting it to 42,000 numeric. we're setting it to the string 42000. Now this is one where I can tell I did not put it back the way I was playing with it, because what it probably originally said was is digit. Let me put this back the way. Okay, so is it a digit? Yes, all the characters in that string are digits. That doesn't mean that the data type of sale amount is a numeric type, integer or float. It means that all of the characters in that string are numeric. And it can be handy to check, is alpha, which, based on that if then else logic, you can then tell them, oh, you entered the wrong value, or whatever the case may be. You can avoid throwing an exception because you've already checked, and you're not doing a type conversion on something that's going to throw an error. So these are really handy to check strings, because by default, pretty much everything is a string in Python. The input function, and we'll probably Thursday. Yeah, I think Thursday we'll do a little bit of file handling, and it's the same thing when you read a line out of a file. It's a string. So these type checkers, or it's not really, it doesn't check the type. It checks each individual character to see if it is a digit, is alpha, is a num, or I'm sorry, is alnum, is alpha numeric. So not a special character. So these are all really handy. And is lower and is upper, that's the one I modified it to, and I'll put it back. So there's no upper or lower number, right? So if we put is upper here and run it, no. I think I did that just out of curiosity, probably. Is upper, let's try is lower. It's neither, so false, because it's not an alphabetic character. So if we alphanumeric, so I'm going to show you the, let's say if for whatever reason there's a couple of special characters. So it's 42000 open paren close paren. So now if I'm going to say is alnum to see if it's alphanumeric, and it should be no. Yeah, there you go. So that those methods give you some really good quick ways to verify data, and it doesn't have to be something that somebody typed in the screen in an input function. It can be data that you're checking out of a file or in a data frame as you go through and just wrangle and sort and do calculated fields and whatnot, get rid of stuff, get rid of dirty data. These methods can become really handy. So those are property methods, really, that kind of tell you the properties of that string. And then we've got some search and replace methods that are pretty handy down here. Ends with returns a true false if a string ends with something or starts with something. The first and last method that we talk about here. Find returns the index of the first character of whatever you're finding. Replace it's a method that, like, temporarily, and you'll see here, if you have to use it in an assignment statement. It doesn't replace old with new inside the string that you're working with. It's a temporary, like a function call. It's a method. Okay, so down here we assign bears to the variable mascot, print it out. print it out 5 times. That's, oh yeah, if you needed to, for whatever reason, if you need to repeat a string, you can multiply it and it just repeats it over and over and over, however many times. So we got mascot equaling bears and test string equaling Mary had a little lamb. And then, yeah, back to the search for the Holy Grail. But it's oh, sure, you're thinking it's a furry bunny, but it's got sharp teeth. Yeah, there was a dangerous rabbit in that movie. Sharp teeth string. We're going to set equal to test string calling the replace method, and we're going to replace lamb with rabbit. And then show you the result of that to prove to you that the replace method doesn't change lamb to rabbit in test string. It just returns that value, that replacement value, so that you can use it in this assignment statement, and turn sharp teeth string into Mary had a little rabbit. Okay. Oh, and yeah, the find variable. I'm sorry, the find returns an index value. I want to go over that just a little bit more. Okay, so these first ones were pretty easy, right? Print mascot bears, print mascot 5 times, bears. Mary had a little lamb, and we're printing out this replacement here, which turns sharp teeth string into Mary had a little rabbit. And that's your next print statement. Mary had a little rabbit. And then we print the original test string to prove that the replace method did not change the value inside of test underscore str. But then this last one here, this is a little bit more complex. We're embedding a string slicing inside of a method, so it gets a little bit more complex here. So working from the inside out, what do we have here? Test str dot find had. That is calling the find method to return the index value, where the starting character of the first occurrence of HAD is inside of the string that you're looking inside test underscore str, which remember is Mary had a little lamb. So that returns that little bit of code that I have highlighted there. Beg your pardon. That little chunk of code that I've got highlighted there returns what? The first character is 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that returns the number 5, because that's the index position where you first run into HAD. And then it's being that function call, that number 5 gets resolved inside of these square brackets, which are we're indexing test string inside of these square brackets. And you'll notice the find call came before, as the first parameter in a string slicing call. And then there's nothing, the end parameter is omitted. So it goes all the way to the end. So what this print is doing is printing test string from where we find had to the end of the string. Had a little lamb. That's why your last thing there says had a little lamb. So that's a somewhat more complex chunk of code. If you were given that to do, that might take a second to think about. Okay. Any questions so far? How are we doing? Oh, I see a chat. I just now noticed. I have not seen yet. Christopher has not seen The Holy Grail. It is really silly. It's silly and it's old. It's probably what, 40 years old now. So a lot of the comedies, not what folks are ready for anymore, and it is super silly. It really is. But parts of it are pretty funny. I saw one of them, one of the Monty Python players, the biggest one, John Cleese. We were having lunch at a patio restaurant in Santa Barbara, California. We lived in California for a few years. And my wife was kind of looking at the party at the table next to us. And I didn't really notice. And then when they left, she said, "You know, that was John Cleese, don't you?" And I was like, "What?" Because I had seen enough Monty Python movies enough times that I probably would have made a jerk out of myself, imitating some of the characters he does and everything. So it's a good thing. I did not know he was there. Okay. So those were string search and replace methods of the class. And we also have some string modification. But remember, because they return a copy of this, they return a copy of the string, because strings are immutable. So if you want to store that result or that modification operation, you got to stick it back in the same variable in an assignment statement or assign it to a new variable. Okay, so lower, up, lower changes all letters to lowercase, ignores anything that's not a letter. Upper turns it to upper. Strip will get rid of any trailing and leading white space. R strip and L strip, limit that to either side of the string. Strip of if you give it a character, it will pull that specific character, if it exists, from either end of the string. There's I want to say a bunch of string methods, but I'll prove that here in just a minute. Let's see here. We'll run these. So my text is "I love Python programming" in upper and lowercase with an exclamation point. Okay. Text.upper, we print out and see that it upcases it. Text.lower, it lower cases it. But then when we print text again, you see in this third print statement, it never changed anything. It's just returning that value because you called that method. What do I say here? To make the change to the text variable, we have to use an assignment operator. Oh yeah. So if you really, no kidding, want to upcase text, you have to say text equals text.upper. You can't just say text.upper because that returns, it's a temporary call. So this "I love programming" now text is all uppercase until we mess with it again. But you'll notice it just ignores the special character, the exclamation point at the end. It ignores that because it's not an alpha character. And the code for all of these is out there. You can find it. But I wanted to, let's see here. What was I going to prove? What was I going to talk about? Oh yeah. I'm going to add a code cell. Good grief. I just clicked once. Add a code cell. And I'm going to type in a string variable and dot. And we've talked about this before. So if I type that in and I press tab for it to autocomplete, you see every string method in the language, that's within the Python language. It doesn't give you, it's not quite as smart, as like the Excel formula building thing, but it does at least remind you what the name of the method is that you're trying to remember. But these are all the string methods. I know what a lot of these do, but some of them I've never even messed with. Like starts with. I don't think did we ever goof with that? Text dot. All right, and then if I hit tab, starts with it. It auto-complete starts with. I'm gonna see what happens if I say it starts with I. I think it's going to print a true. Print text starts with I should print true. True. Yeah. So there you go. So there's man, there's always a function or method or whatever, or a library. I mean, there's always a smart way to do something. So I spent a whole lot of time Googling, how do you da 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 in Python, and there's samples of everything out there. How about we take a slow break? Let me get rid of that. Put my toys back where I found them. And we'll move on with splitting strings and a couple of other things. And I got one more. I want to do dictionaries before we adjourn for the day too. Okay, so we'll come back to splitting strings at 9:30. Any questions before I turn off my stuff?
Questions?
Cool. Okay, guys, see you back at 9:30. Yeah, I apologize, Cameron and Dexter. Forgot to hit record. So if you have questions, I don't really have an application for this just yet. So no real exercise. But if you want to play around, here's one where I didn't include the code. Down at the bottom here. But anyway, here's an example. I'm trying to get off the stage here, guys. So we enter a course and it gives you the details. So we'll say MIS 2343, looks it up. Sure enough, there they are. We do a little bit of error checking here. If I type in blickety blah, 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 that's not a valid course number. So yeah, not in. If I typed in a key value that's not in our dictionary, not a valid course number. Okay, and there's some other things you can do with dictionaries. You can clear values out, but it doesn't ask you, are you sure? So before you use that, make sure you want to delete everything that's in your dictionary. Get is handy. It retrieves a value in the dictionary, and it does not raise an exception. Here we go. Does not raise an exception if the key value is not found. You can specify what it returns if it doesn't find the value in the dictionary. So that's kind of handy. The following ones form a dictionary view, which is kind of like the temporary view of a string when we did upper and lower. It doesn't really change it. It just it just gives you it returns a temporary transformation of that. Okay, so items is a method that returns the key value pairs, and each element is a tuple containing a key and its value. So we've got some examples of this stuff down here. So we'll run this code cell down here. And we'll get rid of Eric and run that. See that it's gone. So yeah, dictionaries are a powerful data structure. When you have a key value, kind of like dealing with keys in a relational table, and then the subsequent columns or attributes for that primary key value. And we'll use these a little bit, but I don't have an exercise that demands fluency really, as far as homework or anything is concerned. Okay. Well, I'm going to, any questions? Anything run funny that you want to take a look at, or? Okay. So we'll finish up next time. Let me show you this notebook. No, not there. Where are we at? I want to bring up the classroom. So for next time, you can go ahead and download, particularly the files. I don't think I changed anything between the last time I uploaded this file. I don't think there's any changes to it. But anyway, if you'll see here, there's 4 data files that we will use to show you how Python deals with files in its base form, and then we'll expand that when we're working with pandas data frames and CSV files. There's a lot of stuff it's magic. You don't have to write yourself because of these libraries and functions and methods and whatnot. So yeah, next time, go ahead and download Notebook 8 and the files associated for that. And then we'll go from that into Notebook 9. And here's the data files that you'll need for that. I think it's 2 files that you'll need for intro to pandas. And we'll get to that on Thursday. Hey, are any of you taking Tuesday off after the 4th?
I'm not.
I'm not. I'm just taking Monday off.
There you go. Yeah, a lot of you that if you just started with your company not terribly long ago, probably don't have a whole ton of vacation stored up anyway. Okay, well we'll have class as normal on the 5th. I'm moving I'm lucky I'm down here in Central Arkansas. I'm in the county, a couple of miles, a mile from the North Little Rock city limits. So we can sit out in my driveway and, light up the sky without getting the cops called on us. We just about got ran off in Sherwood. They really got tough about it here a few years ago. So we're going to do fireworks on Sunday night. All right, guys. Like I said, get caught up as best as you can. There's 3 or 4 of you that either haven't turned in or have pretty good gaps in that SQL stuff. So finish that up, get as caught up as you can, and we'll continue on with Python on Thursday morning. Enjoy the rest of your week.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.